Hi, welcome to John's Tarot, Tuesday morning podcast only edition. There's a question I've been sitting with most of my adult life. How is it possible that no one, not a family member, not a teacher, not a counselor, not even anyone in recovery, ever said to me, on your journey through life, you may experience something called individuation. Don't panic, you're not broken. This can be a normal part of becoming whole. No one ever said that. And for a long time, I thought that silence meant something was wrong with me. Now I think it means something else entirely. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Our culture doesn't have a shared language for this process anymore. We're very good at teaching people how to function, how to behave, how to cope, how to stabilize. We are far less comfortable with what happens when an identity dissolves. Because individuation, real individuation, moves authority inward. It loosens the grip of approval, certainty, and borrowed values. And most systems, families, institutions, even spiritual and recovery spaces, are designed to stabilize people, not guide them through the loss of who they thought they were. So when this process begins, it often gets mislabeled. Depression, midlife crisis, burnout, loss of faith, relapse risk, too much thinking. Or, just as dangerously, it gets spiritualized into something inflated or special. What's almost never offered is the middle ground, that this kind of suffering can have meaning without being pathology. How this relates to recovery, stability, and outgrowing containers. I want to say something here carefully and with respect. Recovery spaces, AA included, save lives. They gave me structure, humility, and a way back from the edge. But recovery is oriented towards stability, sobriety, structure, surrender, community coherence. Individuation eventually asks different questions. What is my own moral authority now? What does truth mean for me beyond the group? Who am I when the borrowed identities fall away? Many people outgrow the container that once saved them. And that outgrowing often isn't named as healthy. It's seen as dangerous, destabilizing, a threat. Not because anyone is cruel, but because the system's job is to hold people together, not guide them into solitude and responsibility. So people like me often leave thinking we're doing something wrong, when in fact, we may simply be entering a different phase of the work. Why families rarely name this. Families usually can't name what they themselves never lived. They pass on survival strategies, coping mechanisms, stories that help them get through. But individuation often requires departing from the family story. That can feel like betrayal to the people who were never given permission to do the work themselves. So silence isn't cruelty. It's absence of initiation. Now about Jung and the forgotten passage. Carl Jung knew this problem well. He warned that modern people undergo individuation without ritual, without elders, and without maps, like me. In older cultures, this process was expected, named, ritualized, guided. In modern life, it arrives accidentally, through crisis, through addiction, through illness, through confrontation with death, which is exactly how it arrived for me. Now a little about mystery schools, what they actually did. This brings us to mystery schools and initiation, and I want to be very clear and grounded here, without romance. Ancient mystery traditions didn't exist to make people special. They didn't exist to awaken souls on demand. They didn't primarily teach secret information. They did three very practical things. First, they normalized disorientation. Initiates were warned. You will feel lost. Old meanings will collapse. Certainty will dissolve. That alone prevented panic. Second, they gave symbolic language. Myth, ritual, and story gave the psyche images strong enough to carry experiences that couldn't be explained plainly. Without symbol, raw experience overwhelms. Third, they provided containment. A defined beginning and end. Elders who had already walked the path, a shared understanding that this was a passage, not madness. Even silence inside a container is safer than insight in isolation. Now about ordeal and psychological death. Initiation almost always involves descent into darkness, isolation, confrontation with fear, proximity to death. Not because ancient cultures were cruel, but because that's how the psyche reorganizes itself. Addiction, recovery, ICU work, repeated exposures to death. These are modern equivalents of ancient ordeals. The difference is this: I was initiated by circumstance, not by culture. Why do people break without initiation? When individuation happens without context, people often think they're losing their mind, try to medicate it away, regress into certainty, become inflated or messianic, cling to ideology or spiritual identity. Ancient systems existed to prevent exactly that. They didn't make the experience easier. They made it legible. Where the Soul Awakening series fits. So where does my Soul Awakening series fit into all of this? It is not a mystery school, and that's a good thing. It doesn't initiate anyone. It doesn't promise transformation. It doesn't claim authority or lineage. What it does, very deliberately, is something more modest and more ethical. It names a process. It says, if this is happening to you, you're not broken. You don't need to rush, and you don't need to turn it into an identity. It lowers fear instead of raising mystery. It offers a map without a gate. People can listen, pause, step away, return, or ignore it entirely. That openness matters. In closing, the missing sentence. I didn't miss initiation. I underwent it. The culture just forgot how to say, this is a passage, it will change you, and you will return. My work now isn't to awaken anyone. It's simply to make that passage recognizable so fewer people have to walk it alone, terrified they're broken. That's not mystical, it's human, and it may be one of the oldest responsibilities we've forgotten how to hold. That ends my little prepared material on the mystery schools and initiation. An interesting podcast. I wanted to touch a little bit on 12-step work and my relationship to it. I have no intention of leaving the 12-step organizations I'm currently attached to. I enjoy it. It's something I like. And it did save me. It brought me back from the brink. I was really bad, and it's just a safe place. And it's been working for me for the last 36 years. And I see no reason to change that. And it is also what I was taught when I went into the organizations. Just one primarily I belong to. The people who taught me were long-term sobriety people. And one of the things long-term sobriety people do, as I continue to do, is they continue to attend meetings and continue to practice what is taught in the program. So although I have grown in different ways, the organization, I keep using that term, the 12-step organization is still going to be part of my life and still be part of what I do as I move forward. So I'm releasing this a little late today. It's a Tuesday morning, and I'm not working today. I had the opportunity to sleep in. So the question, I usually do a little tarot reading and throw some runes. The question is, in today's modern society, how do people find initiation? Now, those of you who are listening to this podcast are probably already on the path of initiation, and I have no idea how you found it. And when I say initiation, I mean the path of individuation, or if you're just a tarot reader, it's the fool's journey. It's all the same thing. So how do modern people find initiation? That is my question. How do my ability to read tarot is a gift? It's an expression of divine love, and I'm here to share it with you in that same spirit. How do modern people, find initiation? I told you I found it by circumstance. How did you find it? How did you find this podcast? I'd love to hear that. Send me an email and let me know. I'm out at john@johnstarot.net. So how do modern people, and there is no, as I talked about, there is no path for it in our society. We don't talk about this. We don't do this. But those of you who have found this podcast are obviously doing this. So how do modern people find initiation? All right, let me cut the deck. This is just a simple 3-card reading. First card is, the 6 of Wands. Second card is the 9 of Wands. Third card is the Ace of Swords. Let's throw some runes on this too and take a look at this. Odin Freya, please help guide this reading. How do modern people find initiation? 6 of Wands, 9 of Wands, Ace of Swords. All right, my first rune is, I believe that one is called Iwaz. It kind of looks like an inverted Z. Yes, Iwaz. How do modern people find initiation for the 9 of Wands? That's Tiwaz. Looks like an arrow pointed up. And the third rune for the Ace of Swords. How do modern people find initiation? And that rune is called Solu. So, just to be asking this question, the 6 of Wands is a sign of accomplishment. Just to be thinking about it and asking about it is a sign of accomplishment. Congratulations. And it's a sign of internal success that you've reached, that people who are finding this are people who have achieved some level of initiation in their lives already. And then Iwaz, it is many people get stuck in the process. It has to do with, Iwaz has to do with a delay or waiting on the will of heaven. So even though they have successfully moved forward in their lives and come to this point of initiation, there's a bit of a delay as they look for the next step, as they look for the next part of the journey. And that's what this podcast has been about, is helping to find the path of initiation. The second card is the 9 of Wands. The 9 of Wands, I always call him the veteran. He stands there with a bandaged head, holding a wand, and he's an experienced warrior. And though he has been obviously a veteran of many battles, he's ready to take on the next one because he realizes the importance of the battle itself. That is everybody who is on the path of initiation. We're all veterans of difficult and challenging times. Probably most people don't go through the things that you have been through. That is why you're here a little early. That's what brought you here a little early. And then the rune is called Tiwaz. It looks like an arrow pointed straight up. And that is the rune of the warrior. Now, successful... funny that it's right beneath the card of the veteran. So when it talks about the warrior, the rune of the warrior, it has success, successful strategies, success in battle, success in struggles. But it also talks about success in and waiting. A true warrior knows that timing is often the biggest part of any battle they're involved with. So they wait on the will of heaven. A real warrior waits for the most opportune time. And then the Ace of Swords, The last card, you see a sword with a wreath, a crown, and a wreath on top of it. Swords cut through illusion in order to reveal truth. And then the crown and the wreath indicate a mastery and success and victory. Often has to do with legal successes, but it also has to do, in this case, of cutting through illusion, and that is what leads you to success. And then the rune is Solu. It looks like the letter Z, and has to do with bring light over darkness. Has to do with this is Sig rune, and that also has to do with success and struggle. So, in terms of the Ace of Swords, and then my original question is, how do people find initiation in this society? The Sig rune, it comes through struggle, it comes through hard work, and it comes through overcoming your darkness and coming into a period of light. Let me review them really quick again, and then I'll wrap this up. There's the Six of Wands. It has to do with internal victory. The rune is Iwaz, which has to do with delay, waiting on the will of heaven. So that you've come this far, you've been successful, but now you're stuck. They often get stuck and difficult to move on. People who are on this path of initiation are always warriors, spiritual warriors of some type, and they see this battle as worthwhile. And they have the rune of the warrior right beneath, Tiwaz. And that many times means waiting for the most opportune time to move forward. And then the Ace of Swords, past, present, and future. On this journey, you will cut through illusion, you will cut through falsehood, and which will bring you success. And you will bring light over the darkness of your own of your own perceptions of life. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for today. I hope you've all had a great session with me today. What am I going to do next week? This Friday, I am going to talk about embodiment and living the work, and what happens when you've already achieved some level of awakening and individuation. How do you bring that realization into real life, and what does that look like? What does that feel like? So until this Friday, be careful, be cool, be kind, and remember, find courage, have faith, and I will talk to you all on Friday. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.